Earth Day, every day, Earth Day, every day, green our lives in every way, Earth Day, every day, Earth Day, every day, Earth Day, every day, green our lives in every way. Welcome to Circle Sanctuary's Earth Day Festival 2022. This is Selena Fox and I am coming to you live from the Circle Sanctuary Temple Room. We have a beautiful day outside, but a lot of wind. So this seemed to be the better option to not only be heard by those of you who are joining via internet, but those of you who are here in person. So I want to celebrate our community. Yay! So we've been doing Earth Day as an event since Circle Sanctuary began. And even before that, I was doing Earth Day work. I was part of the very first Earth Day in 1970. I was a student at the College of William and Mary in Virginia and was part of organizing a teach-in. Senator Gaylord Nelson, a U.S. Senator from Wisconsin, put out the call for teach-ins to happen in the USA, and many people responded to that call. I was one of many. And I think Reed, our naturalist, was part of Earth Day back then, if I remember. And it's really fabulous to see how Earth Day has continued to grow. Yes, this is my 52nd Earth Day. And we did Earth Day via live stream only and pre-recorded videos for 20 and 21, but here we are in 22, back in person and also live streaming again. So thank you all who are joining live. Thanks to all of you who are joining later. So Circle Green for Earth Day every day. So I'd like to share some of my thoughts and share a few chants as part of a way of celebrating Earth Day. So you might call this a kind of cyber and in-person teach-in. I think it's really important at Earth Day that we take a look at all the good things that have happened over time. At the very first Earth Day, we really needed to clean up a lot of our environment. And coming out of the 1970 Earth Day was the development of the Federal Environmental Protection Agency and the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, the Endangered Species Act, and there was a whole lot of legislation that happened as a result of that very first Earth Day. And I do think that every Earth Day since then has led to some global and federal and local solutions, not only to pollutions, but one of our big challenges right now has to do with climate change. And there's actually three things happening at this Earth Day 2022. We have climate change, and that has resulted in really intense weather. And in some cases it's drought, and sometimes it's wildfires, it's stronger storms. If you have not seen 2006 film, Inconvenient Truth, that Al Gore did, I highly recommend that you go find that film. I actually watched it last night to refresh my memory, and it is an excellent summary of what climate change is about and how we need to take action to mitigate climate change. There are things that we can do on a personal level and small group level, but we also need to work with many people of the challenges of our time. There also is a loss of biodiversity. Plants and creatures are going away, and there are rips in the beautiful biosphere, the community of life that's here on planet Earth. So it's really important that we find ways to address climate change as well as to preserve the diversity that's part of nature here on planet Earth. And of course, the third piece is pollution. And yes, there's still pollution going on with the soil and the air and the waters, and we really need to shift to clean energy. So that's kind of an overview of some of the challenges. What are some of the positive things that have happened in addition to that whole flurry of federal actions that happened after the first Earth Day? Well, a number of people have founded nature preserves, and Circle Sanctuary Nature Preserve, where I'm coming to you live from, is one example of a nature preserve that emerged as a result of Earth Day. When I started Circle Sanctuary back in 1974, part of the vision was to be able to converge people who really cared about nature in a sacred way, and converge community, and to find a way that we all could connect with the larger circle of nature of which we are a part. And in 1983, we found this land. It's 200 acres. And we have been working on a variety of different environmental projects ever since. In addition to nature preserves emerging, there are more people than ever before that are taking part in Earth Day, that are aware of it. In 1990, it shifted from being primarily an event that was in the USA, and now it continues to grow globally. So that's a really positive thing. And yes, we need to be environmentally aware throughout the year, not just on Earth Day, but having Earth Day and Earth Week and Earth Month as opportunities to do environmental education, collaboration, meditation, and transformation is something that we really have had as part of the US, as part of many countries around the world. Some other things, there have been improvements with the ozone layer. There have been improvements of bringing some species that have been endangered or threatened back to life. I mean, amazing good things have been happening. But that said, we have a lot more to do, and unlike 16 years ago when The Inconvenient Truth first came out, we have even less time to turn things around. And I do think it's important that we find things that we can do individually and in our households, in our communities, in our neighborhoods, in our local areas, but we also need to be vocal about the importance of environmental preservation and support when we interact with elected officials. And I do think one positive change that's happened in more recent years is more people are asking more questions about environmental policy and action of various elected officials, beginning on the local level, going right up to the national level. I was part of the press corps of a presidential election more than 20 years ago. I joined the press corps to ask questions of presidential candidates about the environment. And I'm happy to say that those questions were part of this in 2000 come out. And welcome, welcome. We have some more of our Earth Day attendees joining us for the live stream. And I'm socially distancing myself from everybody back here, so I'm not muffled with my mask. But yeah, Circle Sanctuary has continued to do what we can to keep everybody safe. So we're in the phase 1 again of our reopening, and which means everyone's vaccinated that comes, that's eligible to be so, and we mask still indoors. I'm really hoping that we can soon get to a place where we don't need the mask indoors and we can do a lot more activities together as we were doing pre-pandemic. So I'm not going to shout and sing quite as loud as I would had we not been in a pandemic right now. So what I'd like to share now are some thoughts about circling green in your own life. And I talk about circling green, green being a term that's connected with the environment. I'm wearing green today as an example of that eco dimension to this day. I actually call Earth Day the 9th Sabbath. Yes, we're having our Beltane Festival next weekend here at Circle Sanctuary Nature Preserve. And as with other nature spirituality centers and groups, we celebrate the equinoxes and the solstices and the cross quarters in between. So one of those cross quarters is Beltane, and we'll be dancing the maypole and having Morris dancers and workshops and a lot of fun for 3 days. So I'm really excited for that coming up. And I'm so glad we have gorgeous weather outside today. It's giving us a chance to connect with all the elements. We've had some abundant rain recently, which is good. That's helped mitigate the drought that we had last year and going into the winter and into the spring. We have plenty of sacred air, a lot of wind going on. The earth is greening, it's fabulous. And our sacred fire today is in the form of sunshine. So what are some things that we can do to celebrate Earth Day in our own lives and to circle green throughout the year? I'd say the first thing is to make a daily practice of taking a few moments out, ideally once a day, but at least once a week, and just be outdoors in your local area with intention, to actually be outside, to tune in to the soil beneath you, to the air around you, to the sun above you, it's shining, to the moisture in the air, in the ground, to the plants, to the creatures, to spend a few moments in your local area and attune to being part of the community of life there. And it may seem to be a pretty simple practice, and it really doesn't require a lot of time and energy. I think part of it is developing what I call eco-awareness, which is in contrast to ego fixation. I am doing this live stream and I have both of my cell phones. I'm going to the Circle Sanctuary YouTube channel, and I've got the Selena Fox Updates Facebook page. And social media can really connect us, but sometimes it gets us too focused on ourselves. And I do think that we have to find ways to disengage from that selfiness and instead really connect with us as part of our development of human identity, of being part of this interconnected web of life. And having that happen right in our own area is really important. And take a moment, experience yourself in your location, and then the next step, be appreciative. Be appreciative of being part of that environment. In a neighborhood where it has some issues, and really you don't have to live out in the wilds like I do in order to do this. Actually, it works best wherever you happen to be and make home. and to actually experience yourself in your local area and to have that as part of your regular practice. You will find as you do this over time, you become more aware of differences not only in the weather, but sounds and sights of creatures, of plants. How are the seasons unfolding where you happen to be? And whether you're in a large city or a suburban area, a small town, a rural area, out on a farm or out in the wilds, it's a wonderful way to connect yourself with that greater web of life. In your area that keeps track in particular issue projects where people come together to work on a particular awareness. I've been part of the March 4th to Earth Day project, which started at the beginning of March, and every Friday in March and in April around the state of Wisconsin, as well as had people join in online. And our focus was not only increasing environmental awareness in a general sense, but in particular, Line 5 is a tar sands pipeline. Enbridge has been trying to reroute through the Bad River reservation of the Ojibwa, Lake Superior Ojibwa, and unfortunately Enbridge has not had a real good record with their pipelines. Line 3 has leaked all sorts of toxins into the soil, into the air, into the water. And so I've been part of a statewide project that has done eco-education on that and eco-activism on that. Yes, in addition to having people gather in rallies and have various signs supporting the environment and stopping Line 5, we have gone and done the bureaucratic thing, which is to register our concerns with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the Department of Natural Resources. So that might sound awfully bureaucratic, but yet in terms of really getting involved with learning about local issues and then taking action, it's really important that we find ways of being able to communicate to people who are in the position of making decisions that will impact environment. Another way to circle green for Earth Day every day is to support one or more environmental organizations. Circle Sanctuary is a nature spirituality church, and there are people that connect with us because of that spiritual focus. We're also a nature preserve. And I want to do a shout out to all of you all here that are here for our Earth Day Festival. We hold an Earth Day Festival every year to do environmental education and make it possible for people to get out and be in green space. And we have a project called the Prairie Project, and I want to do a shout out to our naturalist, Reed, who helped birth the Prairie Project back in 1996. Is that correct? Yes, we called it Prairie 2000, and yes, by the time 2000 came around, we were getting tall grass prairie, and it's been really fabulous to see the prairie come back to our land. Oak Savannah Prairie was part of this land before Europeans came and settled here, and it's been amazing gathering seeds and being able to scatter them, doing restorative prairie burns. Too windy for that today. So, and we have a wetland here, actually several wetlands here at Circle Sanctuary. So we do work with our wetlands, and of course, most of our land is forest. So we have planted trees, we have removed invasive species, we have participated in research. One of the things that Reed and I have done over the years is the eastern bluebird. And for many years, Reed was not only getting the bluebird boxes up, checking them out and seeing how many bluebirds nesting and how many have fledged. I mean, it's been really fabulous. And yes, bluebirds are back here, and it's fabulous. And this is just one example of an organization that you might choose to support. Look in your local area. What kind of parks are there? What kind of projects are there? Do they need help? Certainly there are different ways to support nonprofit organizations that are doing environmental work. Volunteer help. We do volunteer days every month. Well, we've started them up again this month. So we have people come out and not only engage in environmental projects, but all sorts of other kind of work to keep our nonprofits that are going. I also think it's important as we look at what we can do in our day-to-day, tuning in live or later here on. Share a post, share links. That's something that helps boost the signal about environmental events and environmental actions, and it doesn't necessarily require a lot of time and energy. Speakers at the very first March 4th, the Earth Day event, and I was at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, Prayer Day, and I and several other ministers from other faith traditions were asked to actually kick off the Madison rally with prayers for the environment. And I thought it was important not only to be there and do that work, but to live stream it. So if you're involved in some kind of environmental project and you don't mind doing live streaming, I encourage you to do so, or take a picture and share pictures. Do you have an Earth Day sign or image that you work with as you celebrate? I love having images of the planet, not only for Earth Day, but year-round. In fact, I have my Earth Day pin, and I'll be bringing out some other Earth Day symbols at our ceremony this afternoon. You can set up in your home an eco-altar. What's an eco-altar? But something that you have objects on that represent your appreciation and connection with your local area and the planet as a whole. And I would recommend getting some image of planet Earth. It could be a NASA photo. The one in 1972 is well known, and I actually will be using that in the ceremony this afternoon. But you can find a lot on the internet, or you may get some kind of crafted project. Back in 1990, Hug-a-Planets came into being, and actually this dates back to Earth Day 1990 here at Circle Sanctuary Nature Preserve. We not only got a Hug-a-Planet for our ceremonies, we actually were using them for fundraising and getting them out in the universe and helping to raise some funds for our center back then. So have an image of the Earth and have some kind of imagery from your local area. I like working with the elements of nature, earth, air, fire, water, and spirit, not just because I'm pagan, and these are rooted in ancient Greek paganism, but clearly it's something that people across different cultures and spiritual traditions are connected with. Yes, there's the elements that are in the periodic table, but we have the original elements that humans have been working with from earliest times, at least dating back more than 2,000 years ago, as people started converging. Pythagoras, who gave us a 3, 4, 5 triangle that we get to learn about as we study math, had a mystery school, and the 5-pointed star in a circle, the pentacle, represents earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. And I invite you to consider spending some time deepening your relationship with each of those elements as part of spiritual practice. Earth, the rocks, the soil, sand. And in our physical lives, it's the physical dimension. air. The air that we breathe, the winds, the atmosphere in our personal lives, thoughts, fire, energy. Well, many kinds of energy, and clearly we need to shift to more sustainable forms of energy. It's not just candle flames and prairie fire, but lightning flash and electricity and other forms of energy connecting with the sacred fire and with water. We have salt water, fresh water. We have springs and wells and streams and rivers and ponds and lakes and oceans. And we have brackish water. We have the salt water of the ocean. And as you look at planet Earth, you'll notice there's a lot of water on planet Earth. And so in working with water, not only bodies of water, but with precipitation. And for spirit, that's the interconnecting force that connects us not only with other humans, but with the larger community of life in the natural world here on planet Earth and beyond. So one of the things I like to do for an eco-altar is to have a representation of earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. Often I'll have a rock for earth and a feather for air, a sun symbol for fire, a cup of water for spirit. Often I use a quartz crystal. But be aware of many choices for those connections. I also think, look at your own life. In addition to having an eco-altar, think about the dimensions of the elements in your life. What kind of connection do you have with the soil, with land around? Do you do gardening? How do you care for gardening and your plants? For air, well, how clear is the air? How clean is the air in your area? Sometimes the wildfires out in the western part of the USA have sunsets, but put a lot of particulate matter into the air. And there are forms of pollution, unfortunately, that still go into our air. And one of our biggest problems as a species, as a human species, is our addiction to fossil fuel. And I'm calling it an addiction because we haven't yet figured out a way to break that. And there's many contributors to global warming and climate change, but the fossil fuel situation is a big one. And I have been questing to get an electric vehicle now since I did my first test drive back in 2004. And I'm truly hoping that some charging stations will come into being. I almost got one during the pandemic, but it wasn't quite what was needed at that point, and it looked like it was going to take a while to get a proper charging station happening. But increasingly, EV is a way to go for people, and that is a way to shift to some clean energy. How clean is the water where you are? And what can you do to help have cleaner water? If you're somebody that really likes to do recreation on lakes and ponds and rivers and the ocean, see what you might be able to do to help improve the water health. One of the biggest problems I've been noticing when pre-pandemic, I would go to the East Coast where most of my family lives and would vacation by the ocean, and seeing the kind of plastic that will wash up from the ocean, and knowing that sea life is being negatively impacted by all of that. Well, more people are getting involved in cleaning up the waters. In fact, I saw this the other day as I was looking at various eco-education videos in preparation for Earth Day, and there are actually some kind of like a barge, and they take all the plastic in out of rivers before they go into the ocean. And I hadn't seen that before. Look into it more. And I know that there's been some people working on getting rid of the big plastic island that's in the middle of the Pacific. I mean, there's all sorts of things like this to be aware of. And in terms of the spirit, the fifth element, well, connect with what I call the Earth Day spirit. Earth Day spirit within us, Earth Day spirit around us. And not just on Earth Day, but in every day. And I have some chants I'm going to weave into our ceremony this afternoon. So by the Earth Day spirit is keeping yourself aware of what is going on environmentally and engaging in at least one thing to help bring about better change. Something that we can do in our day-to-day lives is be aware of where our food comes from and what kind of packaging it's in. And if you have a choice in products with packaging that's recyclable and stuff that isn't, well, go for the recyclable one. Give some feedback to companies about their packaging, and I really have seen some shifts in how packaging is happening, but we're still in need of having some change in that way. Just determining where you're putting your dollars. I mean, that, basic economics. What do you support? And how involved are they in truly greening their manufacturing, their company life? There's something called greenwashing. I'm wondering if anybody knows about greenwashing. Greenwashing means, in a business sense, putting out lots of environmental language, eco-friendly, we are green, natural. Well, are they truly natural? To actually look into companies that produce products that you get, and not only learn pre-pandemic, I traveled a lot by airplane to do talks and ceremonies, and I noticed on one of the major carriers, and this is a number of years ago, just all stuff just went into one big garbage bag, and I said to the flight attendant, "Do you recycle?" "Oh, I have to check on that." Came back later, "No, you need to recycle." But it wasn't just talking to the flight attendant, I was a frequent flyer with that airline, and I called them up, and I also sent them an email. You don't always get the phone numbers as readily these days, but if you could actually call and talk to someone, have your talking points in order, be concise, be polite, but be insistent that we get something better. Most of us have some kind of bank account. Many of us are using credit cards. Do you know where your credit card company has its investments? Do you know where your bank has its investments? And in preparation for Earth Day this year, when I went and met with the head of the local bank, we're Circle Sanctuary due to the pandemic, we hadn't really been out and about, and got a chance to meet with the head of the bank and talk with her. And one of the things I said, "Well, can you tell me about what this bank invests in? And are you invested in any fossil fuels?" Nobody had ever asked her or anybody else that was on duty in the bank before that question. And it took her a couple weeks to get back to me, but I'm happy to report, no, our bank does not invest in fossil fuels. If you have retirement accounts or other kinds of financial dealings with the larger business world, ask some questions and give some corrective feedback. I really think if more people started asking those questions, and not just once on occasion, but keep at it, I think the likelihood of us contributing to a momentum to truly have companies go green can really help. So those are some things that you can do in your own personal life. If you are part of a group, I do think having some environmental activities together. It might be taking a nature walk. It may be doing a trail cleanup. It may be working on planting trees or a variety of other things. Certainly as a household or as a small group or community, actually weaving into your life during the course of the year, something environmental can be really fabulous. I also think, in addition to having your personal life be green, and your household and communities that you're part of, is to be part of the political process, regardless of what your political affiliation might be, is to take a look at what candidates are running for public office and see what they're saying about their environmental record. And if those questions aren't being asked, to ask them. There was the March for Science at Earth Day a few years ago, and one of the ways that Circle Sanctuary here took part in the March for Science. Some of our scientists were actually involved in Madison and some other parts around the US, scientists standing up for the importance of addressing climate change and being able to have the term climate change actually put on federal government websites. There was a lot of uproar when that terminology was being removed, and some data that was publicly available was not going to be available anymore. And there were scientists that got the federal information and actually put it on other sites. Well, what I did was connect with elected officials, both US senators from Wisconsin. One, no surprise, was very much on board with continuing to work for a better environment. Thank you, Tammy Baldwin, and I'll call her out here. Ron Johnson never even returned the call. So I had a very different experience when I called both offices, and polite and supportive, and I got a follow-up letter from Senator Tammy Baldwin's office, but the other senator needs improvement regarding the environmental sector. And if people do not have direct communication with their elected officials, they may continue to be in a silo and ignore it all. So I do think that being able to even send an email about environmental issues can really have an impact. But if you can also individually write a letter and send it by postal mail or do a phone call to a staffer, it actually gets more attention. So these are some of the ways that I myself have been circling green for Earth Day every day. And those of you who are present, do you have things that you want to share? If you can speak it out, then I'll repeat it so it gets picked up better by our cameras. Anyone else have ideas for how to have Earth Day every day? I see a lot of people thinking. But my husband experienced in about 15 minutes, and I do think another way to have Earth Day every day is to really have some form of deeper spiritual alignment, way to walk around and and spend some time. And we have ceremonial sites, but we also have nature trails and everything. I've been talking a lot about greening life. Well, before signing off, I want to talk about the other part of the life cycle, which is greening death. We have a green cemetery here at Circle Sanctuary Nature Preserve, and it's important as we think about ways to live sustainably, we also think about what will happen to our bodies after we die. And there are options. There are a variety of green options. Here at Circle Sanctuary, we have a 200-acre nature preserve. 20 acres of that is our green cemetery. We're one of the first green cemeteries in North America. We started in 1995, and we have 4 parts of our cemetery. We have the old ridgetop, which is where most cremation burials are. We have the burying ground for full body green burial. And then we have the prairie, which is actually part of our cemetery where we scatter ashes, and we have the stone circle, which is where we do some ceremonies, and we'll be doing one today. So what are your choices for greeting the end of life? Well, you can have a green funeral with lots of nature imagery woven in. That's a start. You may want to support a green cemetery, or what's known as a hybrid cemetery, a cemetery that has a section that's for green burials. You may want to think about full body burial or cremation, and with cremation, in addition to flames being a way of generating the ash, there is Aqua Cremation now as an option. It's not yet a legal option in Wisconsin, but a number of states have adopted it. It's 90% more better fuel-wise than a regular cremation. And then I found out the other day there is even a composting option in some funeral homes out in California and some other places. Well, right now we have 2 options, cremation, and we don't do the cremation here, but ashes can either be scattered in the prairie or buried up in our original part of our green cemetery. And then we have full body burial. What is a green burial? But it is having a body that is not embalmed in a biodegradable container being returned to the earth. And we started in 2010 with our full body green burials. And some people choose the full body green burial, others prefer the cremation option. There are pros and cons for each, positive and negative things. And as part of choice making, I invite you, yes, we're at springtime and everything is greening up. Well, also think about the end of life. One of the wonderful things about green cemeteries is that you're preserving green space and form of end of life, human remains released. And I do think we not only need to green life, but also green death. Well, I'm wondering, I might have some of you join me in a short chant, and I see some others are coming in. You're welcome. I'm going to wrap up in just a few moments. What is the chant I'm going to do? It's a new version to a chant that I've done at Earth Days in the past. And I'm going to say a line, and those of you who want to, I invite you to speak that line, and that's how I'll teach the chant. Let's clean up the soil. Let's clean up the soil. Let's clean up the air. Let's clean up the air. Let's clean up the waters. Let's change to clean energy. Let's change to clean energy. Let's clean up the soil. Clean up the soil. Let's clean up the air. Let's clean up the air. Let's clean up the waters. Let's clean up the waters. Let's shift to green energy. Let's shift to green energy. And the short version of this: clean soil, clean air, clean waters, clean energy, clean soil, clean air, clean waters, clean energy, clean soil, clean air, clean waters, clean energy, clean soil, clean air, clean waters, clean energy. Earth Day, every day. Green our lives in every way. Earth Day, every day. Green our lives in every way. Earth Day, every day. Thank you all who have joined me in person. Thank you all who have joined me on the Circle Sanctuary YouTube channel. Thanks to all of you who've joined me on the Selena Fox Updates Facebook live stream. Yes, I tried something new today. Thank you all for being part of this experiment, and those of you sitting together, seeing me through the tripod legs. Happy Earth Day!